I mean, Christopher, look at the pictures we're showing on TV, right? I mean, the number of people who are coming and headed our way. We're told it's 3 additional caravans. Do you have any idea in terms of where that stands? Are they waiting until after the election?
That's exactly what they're doing. There's hundreds of thousands right now, Maria, in southern Mexico, just waiting for the election. They want to see what's going to happen, obviously, before they actually make their way to the border. And it all goes back to leadership and having strong leadership in the United States that's going to put pressure on Mexico to keep these caravans or keep any potential illegal immigrants from making this journey. But yet we're not seeing that. We haven't seen that in the last 2.5 years. And just to go back to my point earlier, when we talked about hiding the negative optics, well, of course, the federal government has been also allowing illegal immigrants through the use of the CBP-1 app and also these direct flights from some of these countries, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, directly into the United States. And those numbers are not accounted for the daily, daily encounters that we're seeing right now. So we still have a situation on our hands right now. On daily average, we're seeing 2,000 illegal border crossings a day. Now, that's not as big as what we normally would see, between 6,000 to 8,000. But nonetheless, if you go back to the Obama administration, when you look at DHS Secretary Jay Johnson, he even said 1,000 would be catastrophic, would be a problem on the border. Right now, we're still dealing with 2,000, not taking into account the gotaways as well and all the criminal activity that comes with it.
Yeah. And of course, part of the reason that the numbers are down is Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, has done an incredible job with his Operation Lone Star, which you, of course, have been among the leaders of. I want to get your take on what's happening now with New York City sending 4,500 migrants back to Texas, offering free one-way plane and bus tickets to other states like Illinois, Florida, or Colorado. New York spent nearly $14 million on the reticketing program as of July. So Abbott sends migrants to New York, then New York spends all this money, millions, to send them back to Texas. The Big Apple has spent more than $6 billion total on this migrant crisis, Lieutenant. What are your thoughts? Have you felt the impact of those migrants from New York City being sent back to Texas?
We have not, Maria, and I don't believe we've seen that as of yet, but I know the governor has a plan in place to take care of that issue. And it goes back to politics again. Now New York has seen that they can't handle the situation because not only just the amount of people, but also economically as well. So I can tell you for a fact that in Texas, the governor's made it very clear, Governor Abbott's made it very clear that, we're not going to allow illegal immigrants into the state of Texas, especially if they're not allowed to be here. We're going to continue busing them to these sanctuary cities because, again, these are sanctuary cities. They did welcome these illegal immigrants from day one, so they should accept them and provide them all the resources they need.
Right. Suddenly, it's not a sanctuary city all of a sudden, as they want to send the people back to Texas. Joe Borelli, jump in here.
Yeah, Lieutenant, we're 6 days away from an election, and by some accounts, Donald Trump is poised to win. Is Texas Department of Public Safety, are you guys concerned that the Biden-Harris administration will actually open the floodgates for the last 2 months of their presidential term? Is that something you guys are preparing for?
That's a great question. Of course, and that's why, as Maria mentioned, when we look at the number of illegal border crossings down in the state of Texas, it's not because of the federal government, what they've done. It's because of what we've done in Texas. Our state troopers, our National Guard soldiers, we have gotten border crossings down 88% in the state of Texas. So we remain proactive. Our posture has not changed on the border. We still have thousands of National Guard soldiers, state troopers. So we remain proactive, and we're ready for anything that may come our way, especially a potential surge after November 5th. So we're monitoring that closely with our partners, as well as gathering intelligence. We've dealt with a situation before. If you look back in 2021 with the Haitians, 17,000 plus, we were able to deploy over 600 state troopers in a moment's notice to secure that area, and we'll do the same right now moving forward. So again, our posture has not changed. We remain proactive, and we'll continue reinforcing any areas along the border that we see as vulnerabilities.
Well, of course, and one of the most serious and scary parts of all of this is the national security element. And authorities are warning that those caravans that we just talked about are being extorted by the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. The Texas Department of Homeland Security is using taxpayer money to put up these billboards. One of the billboards says this: "Your brother in immigration custody has rights. We're here to help." Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol sources told Fox News they're furious about these billboards, calling the ads insulting and saying that they feel like they work against them. Many say that their agency are already working with limited funding and resources. What about the element of this Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua? Have you had any impact or engagement with any of the members?
Well, real quick, Maria, on those billboards, of course, this just further demoralizes, federal agents, Border Patrol agents, ICE agents for doing their job. We're going out there wanting to track down these criminals and arrest them and hold them accountable. And when you see a billboards like this from our own federal government, it really undermines the rule of law, and what we should be doing as a country is actually holding people accountable for violating the law. As far as Tren de Aragua, in Texas, Governor Abbott, he's the only one that I know of right now in the state or in the country, as far as a governor or in the state of Texas, actually holding Tren de Aragua, TDA, accountable for their actions, actually designate them as a foreign terrorist organization. No other state or other governor has done that, and providing a cash reward up to $5,000 for anyone that can give us information that will lead or to the arrest of known or suspected TDA members. So we're taking a proactive step in Texas. You're well aware of that, and of course we want to track down this gang because they're starting to infiltrate not only Texas but also the entire country, and they do have affiliation with the Mexican drug cartels as well, because they are involved in human smuggling, trafficking, extortion, prostitution, and also even murder.
Unbelievable. Lieutenant, good to talk with you. Thanks very much for all of your efforts. Lieutenant Christopher Olivarez at the border this morning. Thank you, sir.